barely see it.
There it is! Go! Inside! Now!
And before it was over, 25 lives were lost, and more than $1 billion in damage was done. This is the story of that night and rebuilding during the worst of circumstances. This is Tennessee Tornadoes, 1 year later.
365 days since the very fabric of Middle Tennessee came apart at the seam.
We did not know then that this was far from the only storm we would have to weather.
7 tornadoes tore a deep path of destruction across the state and stole 25 lives. Moments of terror impossible to forget.
There it is! Go! Inside! Now! Now! Get inside, folks!
Total damage estimates come in around $1.5 billion, but the true cost of this storm is impossible to measure.
Tonight, we take you back while looking forward as we track the path of the tornadoes and the acts of courage that define the true spirit of Tennessee.
That unforgettable night began first in Benton County, where to this day we can still see the damage. One person was killed by that first tornado, but our night of terror had just begun.
Perhaps the most destructive twister touched down at John C. Toon Airport. Its powerful path stretched for 60 miles. Winds of 165 miles per hour grabbed whatever it could, including our own Sky 5. 1 year later, we have a new helicopter and sent Storm 5 meteorologist Bree Smith for a ride to see how much recovery is still left.
Carrie, a year later, the tornadoes from that historic night still causing palpable pain. The tornado barreled into John C. Toon Airport as a powerful EF2 with leveling the airport. It picked up steam as it took aim for its first neighborhood, North Nashville, taking the brunt of it. It was just getting started on its 60-mile journey through Davidson, Wilson, and parts of Smith County. Next up, Germantown, as it moved to the most densely populated parts of our area. Vicki.
Thanks, Bree. And it didn't stop or change course, ripping right into some of the most densely populated parts of Nashville, catching many off guard.
Hello, sir. You okay?
Hello. Under the Jefferson Street Bridge. I'm trapped.
The tornado slammed parts of Germantown, leaving apartments in splinters and neighbors stunned. In North Nashville, it demolished dozens of homes, as well as St. John's AME, the oldest African Methodist Episcopalian church in the state. Driving along Formosa Street and 21st, the sign that reads St. John's is the only hint that a true landmark once stood here. St. John's AME Church in Nashville is the oldest African Methodist Episcopal church in Tennessee, but the bricks and mortar went flying when the tornado touched down.
The phone rang and one of our neighbors from the church called and said, you know, you've got damage to the church. And I said, okay. And they tried to position their headlights on the church so that I could see. And I said, I can't see, go to the front.
Pastor Lisa Hammonds grew up in St. John's, and she says the neighborhood turned out when the sanctuary crumbled.
People and neighbors had come out, and people from the community had come with chainsaws and were cutting up trees and volunteering to help clean up glass and debris and rubbish. And so it was tremendous.
It was also heart-wrenching.
Without a physical building, you do feel that, you know, that grief, you go through that grief journey. But I will say that's a building. It's a building that is sentimental to us, that means a lot to us, but it's a building. We are the church.
As time has gone on and we began to kind of get our footing, so to speak, it has really been truly a blessing, to be honest with you. We've been able to do things that we haven't done ever in the life of the church.
There's no solid date on a rebuild, but
there's no doubt that we will rise from the ashes. There's no doubt that we will be greater than we have ever been before, because that's St. John.
Vicki Yates, News Channel 5.
East Nashville was next in the path of the storm, and a full recovery is still a long way off, Bree.
That's right, Rory. As the tornado moved into East Nashville, it actually intensified to EF3 strength. 136-mile-per-hour winds leveled businesses. The damage to buildings there, homes, and historic structures still remains very visible on the ground. This is where the tornado took its first 2 lives. A boyfriend and girlfriend trying to get home from work at Attaboy Bar. News Channel 5's Sina Sleem shows us how the Attaboy family is working to move forward from the damage and from the loss of members of their own family.
It's hard to believe it's been 365 days.
I think for everyone this year, the relationship with time has been strange. It's felt like a long year and a short year at the same time.
When the tornado hit, Attaboy received some damage to its building.
There was parts of the ceiling that had collapsed, with light fixture had fallen,
as well as damage from water and mold. But the greatest loss was 2 of their beloved employees. Michael Dolfini was leaving work with his girlfriend, Aubrey Sexton, when debris hit and killed them.
People say it all the time when, you know, a tragedy strikes or we lose people that, you know, they were the best of us. I think it's pretty accurate. It's not an embellishment. You know, they were fantastic people. They loved each other. And I think it just resonated in every aspect of their life, you know. What they brought to this place, how they treated guests.
With the support of the community, the business worked to rebuild. But they were hit with another whammy, the COVID-19 pandemic. In October, Attaboy was finally able to reopen, with most of their staff returning. However, it wasn't without its challenges.
It's been really hard with not so much with the capacity restrictions, but with the city time restrictions.
Even so, Bramhall knows there's so much to celebrate, because despite having to endure some serious setbacks over the past year, Bramhall tells me the best views always come from the hardest climbs.
I think it's just taught me like a good handful of things, but the resounding one is just like, you know, the best parts of life are people and the relationships you have with them.
In East Nashville, Sina Sleem, News Channel 5.
Thanks, Sina. Down but never out, strangers came together in East Nashville, making sure survivors knew what it meant to be part of Music City.
It's going to take a little bit more than a tornado to get me out of here.
Between boarded up windows and piles of debris, local band Catfish Seminars set up a makeshift stage, performing to keep spirits up.
Rory, in Nashville, the tornado damaged more than 1,600 homes. But as News Channel 5's Hannah McDonald shows us, one key landmark became a beacon of hope in the middle of the rubble.
Life has had to go on, as some of life has stood still in East Nashville since March 3rd, 2020.
This is the inside of the tornado right now.
I remember seeing 5 points, and I knew when I saw those buildings in bad shape that something crazy had happened.
Heartbreaking.
In the morning, chance was on full display. Some things were all out destroyed by the EF3 tornado, while others came through without a scratch. And that was something seemingly everyone went to see.
It was crazy how many people were trying to get in here just to see the mural.
The I Believe in Nashville mural was untouched by the tornado.
The fact that it was the only thing left standing proved that we are tough here in Nashville.
Tim Gerst is with the I Believe brand. We have had to believe in Nashville this past year.
If you're hungry, we've got tons of food.
I just think that morning, none of us realized what had started here in Nashville.
Since, a pandemic has taxed Music City.
A lot of this town, from the music industry to service workers, found themselves in a really tough spot.
Nashville continues to push through.
Second Avenue, we are seeing some people starting to, whoa!
In city streets over the summer, racial unrest boiled over.
Evacuate now.
Then on Christmas, a bombing.
Nashville can get hit all the time in different ways, and we're still, no matter what it is, whether it's a tornado, a flood, a bombing, a pandemic, like, our residents are gonna come together and help each other.
All over town, the I Believe in Nashville message has been painted for more than a decade. But this last trip around the sun, this year, may have been the first time people that call Nashville home have soaked it in.
I think this idea that we believe in our own town as much as anyone else does that comes here is core. Like, if we don't believe, who's going to?
In East Nashville, Hannah McDonald, News Channel 5.
New beginnings during a tragedy.
Still to come, we follow the tornado's path and meet one of the youngest survivors of the storm.
It's really cool to see community rally around something that was unfortunate that happened.
Plus, the volunteer state earns its nickname in the aftermath. You're watching Tennessee Tornadoes 1 year later.
It doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's how we're alive, we're saved, we can get all of this back.
A long and exhausting process.
After the tornado left East Nashville, Donaldson and Hermitage were directly in the crosshairs. Surveillance cameras at a grocery store captured the moments the winds picked up and breathed. These communities did not come out unscathed.
That's exactly right, Vicki. Homes were leveled across parts of the Donaldson area. Now a peak EF3 with 160-mile-per-hour winds, and it was moving through the Donaldson community at 1 o'clock in the morning. Weather apps actually played a critical part in alerting citizens that had gone to bed that night, waking them up and giving them just enough time to seek shelter. That's where we join Heather Mathis now, who took a close look at how folks were able to receive that critical life-saving information during the storm.
Well, Bria, folks at home needed any more reason to download our Storm Shield app. Maybe this will convince them. We spoke with the National Weather Service, who say in this neighborhood in Donaldson, it was their weather app like Storm Shield that woke them up and is responsible for saving multiple families' lives.
The tornado came from that hill over there.
To this day, Chrissy Hurley with the Nashville National Weather Service can't believe there were no deaths here.
So looking over in this area, this would have been where the basement was, where they took shelter.
They walked into the basement and that's where they took shelter.
This is a real tornado that is on the ground.
When I heard them say it's time to take shelter, well, I listened to them and went downstairs.
Just after midnight, an EF3 tornado packing winds of 165 miles per hour tore through these homes.
That type of wind is, very significant.
Hurley believes many families were saved because of their cell phones.
Their weather app that they had just downloaded, saved their life.
According to Hurley, many homeowners were using our Storm Shield app.
And over, it is their cell phone went off, it's the weather app or their weather radio. It's great to have multiple ways to wake you up in the middle of the night.
In Donaldson, Heather Mathis, News Channel 5.
Thanks, Heather. It can be overwhelming to think about all we lost the night of the storm, but this next story is about what we gained.
News Channel 5's Chris Davis introduces us to one of the youngest survivors.
In Stanford Estates, going from rubble to recovery is happening step by step. Only some are in leaps and bounds, while others are still marching in place. For the Roy family, it's in baby steps.
Kaboom!
A year ago today, they were celebrating one of their first nights home with their newborn, baby Adeline. Then alarms started sounding, and they turned on the TV.
That trajectory was exactly in line with where our house is.
From their safe place, they could actually hear the tornado roaring outside their door.
It sounds like a train coming through.
Adeline slept through it all. Her parents, not even a wink.
I mean, all it had to do was jump a street, and it lands here.
This is incredible how much power this storm had.
A few days later, Jason was able to see firsthand all of the destruction that had only missed them by just about 700 yards.
What if that were me? What if I were here in this same neighborhood? What would me and my family have done? And would we have been okay, through all this?
They've been counting their blessings ever since.
Thankful for the fact that she's made it through so many different things with the tornado and just everything else that's happened this year.
On their mantle, they have a picture of baby Adeline every month since her birth. Still so grateful, both their daughter and community are growing again, step by step.
We see that people are still trying to rebuild their lives across the street. So that is definitely a humbling thing and makes us really not take for granted what we have and what we've been through.
Chris Davis, News Channel 5.
The same tornado next crossed into Mount Juliet, leveling some 1,200 homes and killing an elderly couple and a security guard. It was the deadliest tornado to hit the county in nearly a century. Bree, while moving through Wilson County, the tornado actually got stronger, reaching its peak intensity before crossing into Lebanon.
Carrie, not only did the tornado get stronger as it moved into the Mount Juliet area, it also got bigger as it plowed through one of the most densely populated parts of Mount Juliet. Some are still in the efforts of rebuilding and some are still rubble. It also took aim for Stoner Creek Elementary and West Wilson Middle. Today, those schools, the roofs are still peeled open. And Carrie, I know that you have been on the ground checking out those damaged schools and other schools damaged in the Wilson County area, and recovery has been slow.
365 days later, and the pace along the main drag in Mount Juliet is back to normal, but just feet away.
It's beyond being patient anymore. We need to get this resolved.
West Wilson Middle School and Stoner Creek Elementary remain mostly untouched, tattered and torn apart. And if you look closely, it's as if time has stood still. In the years since the tornado has happened, piles of debris have been made, but no real demolition has happened. This is a painful eyesore for the Mount Juliet community, and the holdup comes down to insurance.
When you've got a project the magnitude of 2 campuses, 2 schools, there's a lot that has to be dealt with, negotiated, come to some kind of resolution.
Wilson County's Director of Schools, Dr. Donna Wright, says she believes both buildings need to come down. The district's insurance company insists parts of each school can be saved. After the year-long tug of war, Wright tells me she believes a deal is just weeks away.
We still have probably over 1,700 kids that have been displaced that need to come back home.
Wright knows returning here is part of healing. It's something she does surprisingly often.
I try to get here at least once a week.
Remembering first the laughter and little voices that filled this space.
I was down this hall on the other side when we were lining up for the book parade.
Just hours before the tornado destroyed it all.
I just look at these 2 classrooms first, and I have to sit there and just think and be thankful. And thank the Lord that, you know, because I would not have been able to handle the loss of a staff member, but the loss of children. Oh, couldn't have handled it.
Those weren't the only schools impacted. 6 mid-state schools were caught in the path of the storm, sustaining major damage. Repairs are still ongoing.
Dead silent, and then you could hear the screams.
A historic storm leaves the community shaken but not shattered.
Plus, moments of hope during days of devastation. Inside plans to honor lost loved ones still ahead.
The deadliest and strongest tornado to hit Middle Tennessee that night was a violent EF4, the worst twister on record to ever hit Putnam County.
Not sure how we survived and other people didn't, but happy, sad.
19 people lost their lives, 5 of them children. Bree, it's heartbreaking. A dozen of the casualties happened in the same neighborhood.
Most of the damage that night, Vicki, was concentrated along Hensley Drive. Now, that EF4 tornado that tore through Putnam County went from an EF0 to an EF4 with 175-mile-per-hour winds in just 3 minutes. Subsequent storm analysis has revealed that there was likely an additional circulation that formed just south of this monster tornado, and it cut off the energy from that EF4, causing it to dissipate. Leland Statham and Nikki D have a close look at the multiple tornadoes that impacted Putnam County that night and how they interacted with each other.
Thanks, Bree. Putnam County was hit by 3 tornadoes in the early morning hours of March 3rd.
The one that struck Cookeville has been listed as the worst tornado on record for Putnam County.
The first tornado touched down at 1:38 in the morning in the Buffalo Valley area, where it was rated an EF0.
Then 10 minutes later, the second, more powerful tornado touched down at 1:48 a.m. along Highway 70 near Baxter as an EF0, but quickly intensified into an EF2 in the Prosperity Point subdivision.
It moved to the Double Springs community as an EF3 and intensified to an EF4, where it leveled 17 large homes on Hensley Drive.
This is where many of the deaths occurred. The twister continued as an EF4 along Echo Valley Drive, where an apartment complex and 5 more homes were destroyed. It started to weaken as it continued along Highway 70.
The National Weather Service believes a developing third storm that touched down at 2:05 in the morning in the Gulfton area may have saved downtown from a direct hit. Energy from the third tornado caused the second twister to dissipate just 5.75 miles from Cookeville's downtown.
19 people died in Putnam County and 88 others were injured. There were the first deaths from a tornado in Putnam County since March of 2003.
At its peak, the winds from the EF4 tornado topped 175 miles per hour and had a maximum width of 900 yards.
And to put that in perspective, at its widest, we're talking about the width of 9 football fields back to back. Carrie, Roy?
Remarkable. One of the most memorable people we met following that EF4 tornado that wiped out the Hensley Drive neighborhood was Chester Bush.
News Channel 5's Jason Lamb and photojournalist Catherine Stewart checked back in with Chester, who believes he is alive today because he happened to be out of town.
It's a new day for the neighborhood off Hensley Drive in Cookeville. In the shadow of what the EF4 tornado took and left behind a year ago. There is constant growth and change, with a promise of more to come. That change has touched almost all of the people who've called this place home.
Hey Chester, it's been a while. How are you doing?
We're doing good.
We first met Chester Bush last year.
Oh my goodness.
Searching through what was left of his neighborhood.
My 3 children, when they were young.
Chester says these days he's staying active and he tries to go for a walk every day.
Get a little exercise. We can't go to the gym, but hopefully we can before too long.
He and his wife now live out in California, a change they made after a decision not to rebuild.
It was pretty rough. You know, I have my children back there and grandchildren, and we like to get back there and see them.
But it was too much work, Chester says, for living there only 3 months a year. So someone else will move into the new house on Chester's old property.
4580 Hensley Drive.
Turns out Chester hadn't seen the latest change to his old lot, so we showed it to him.
That's what it looks like now.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that they moved the front door over to the left. The front door was where the window is.
It's been volunteers and neighbors who have helped Chester this past year. They helped him find his prized military awards from Vietnam.
It wasn't damaged or anything, so I did find my Bronze Star award letter.
But the items he's cherished most from those volunteers have been even smaller.
Oh, yes.
Than that.
There you go, sir. That's Christmas picture with my dad and my wife and brother.
You found your parents' pictures.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It just meant a lot to be able to find that and to, you know, have that to bring back good memories. It's just so important to have that, and until you lose it, you don't realize, you know, how important it was.
This neighborhood looks different today than yesterday, but Chester can see what still remains. A love that extends all the way to California and well into tomorrow.
Putnam County was always near and dear to me, but the people there, just unreal.
With photojournalist Catherine Stewart, Jason Lamb, News Channel 5.
Beautiful. Chester's neighborhood will soon be home to a memorial park for Putnam County victims. News Channel 5's Eric Hilt takes us inside that effort.
I've been thinking about it a lot, you know.
When Lisa Samidi looks around her Putnam County neighborhood,
I can't believe it's been a year.
She gets the same feeling she had 1 year ago.
It's still fresh in your memory, that's for sure.
The memories of the March 2020 tornado are kept fresh by the constant reminders of the deadly storm.
My neighbor right here lost his son and his grandson. So, you know, you see him all the time, and, you know, that comes back all the time.
But the biggest reminder are the empty lots that still surround Lisa's home.
It's kind of a little bit empty.
and emptiness
We knew we wanted to do something.
that Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter hopes to fill. Earlier this year, the county bought 3 of the now vacant lots with plans to build a memorial park for the 19 people killed in the county.
We want to make sure that everyone remembers there that at one time there were other families that lived here that lost everything, but that we've recovered.
A reminder that Lisa is looking forward to seeing.
I think that would be a good thing for closure.
In Putnam County, Eric Hilt, News Channel 5.
The spirit of Tennessee was tested by these storms.
But we've also seen some incredible acts of kindness. The Community Foundation raised more than $12.4 million for neighbors in need.
And while many still carry emotional scars, our communities are slowly rebuilding.
We are Tennessee strong, a little tougher and a lot kinder every day.